Okay, the thing I wanted to talk about today was a thing we'll call the speedrunners mall, which is not a thing I invented, but it's a pattern that's been around for a while, seems to be pretty useful, gets a lot of good stuff done, is a good way to just get into a new map pretty quickly. And the idea is you have a belt of iron plates, and a belt of split lanes, green chips, and cogs. Between those, you can build a vast amount of stuff in a quick, easy, nasty, fairly concise mall of a lot of stuff you need in the early game. You can build yourself belts, you can build inserters, you can build ammunition. If you've got biters on, you can build yourself pipes, you can have inserters between assemblers to do things like underground pipes, repair packs, mining drills, basic assemblers. This kind of two lane mall bus, I guess you could say, is super useful pattern that lets you do a lot of things, and it's in a lot of speedrun patterns as well. It's in the any percent route. Nefrums and Anti in their default settings design both use a thing like this. I've got into the habit of doing this in just a bunch of different situations because it's kind of useful. And this is, the current phase we're in is in a much later phase, but this thing here is in these two belts and then just a couple of assemblers off the side is its first phase, which is a good habit to get into. Does things well. Exactly how you make, like, the geometry of how you put all these intermediates together doesn't really matter. They're kind of all different. And in terms of how much resources you need to, you don't need to be making a full belt of green chips, and you don't need to be making a full belt of cogs. A sort of a good amount of resources to be pouring into this to keep a mall mostly happy is like a 2 belts of iron, half a belt of copper in total, and the materials will drift down the belt and your mall will fill up with stuff you want to use for your base. The bit where it gets really great though, and the thing that surprised me when I first saw it a while ago when I was getting into speedrunning, is the kind of the evolutions of this thing, because the next thing you do is you realize that belt and inserters are two things that you can make here. In fact, belt often happens elsewhere, but that's not a thing. It's fine. Just make belt. Also put it on a belt. And then you can make all the things that upgrade from belt and inserters also in the mall, also using the things you put on your little mall bus, but also those are the components for green science. This mod has given it a different thing, but it's fine. It's still the same recipe. Green science. So you've got a place that you can just go and make green science that's right next to your mall. And then if you have, copper and cogs is also pretty easy to get together, so that's a nice little way that you can set up your first red-green science and a mall. And the next extension, which is again, did not make these myself. I don't know how long these have been around for, but some clever person realized that if you put pipe and cogs and then steel on 2 belts on kind of the other side of this mall, then you get kind of 2 halves to your mall. You've got kind of a transport half, which deals with all your belts and inserters and things like that, and then you've got a half that needs pipes and steel, so you can make things like refineries need to hand feed some stone or have another box giving it some stone or whatever, but you can make chem plants, you can make assembler 2s, you can make engines, which is a thing. A thing I'll often do is I'll need some number of gun turrets, and so I can just hand feed some amount of stuff. And even if I didn't have the cogs, I just hand feed it some amount of copper, and it will make me a couple of gun turrets, put them in a box, that's fine. You can make ammo here as well, if you're on a map with biters. But once you've got these 2 belts with steel and pipe and cogs, those are the things you need to make engines. So you've also naturally got a place to go and just make blue science just over the other side, which is also a different art because of the mod, and mostly the same recipe, and like close enough in this mod to be able to use the same pattern. So that's kind of a super helpful way of just laying out a first base up into bots, which is kind of where I am at the moment. Basic mall bus, iron and chips and cogs, transport stuff, other stuff, engines, places for science to go and build a thing, that's great. And sometimes it's useful in mods as well. If the mod doesn't change the early game too much, and the 248K mod that we're doing at the moment is one that doesn't seem to change the early game that much. There's kind of like another intermediate that it throws at you, some ceramic composite. It goes into refineries. Yeah, refineries, normal stuff, and this composite, and chem plants is normal stuff and the composite, and simpler 2s is normal stuff and the composite, so you've got to do a bit more tech. But the thing, yeah, the thing I tried was, let's just do exactly the same thing, except instead of batteries on the other side of the steel belt, put the composite there, because it turns out that also, in the 248K mod, engines also need the same composite. So this little side of this mall bus, just, yeah, put the composite on it instead, works out fine. Kind of. The other side of this usually has batteries, and it kind of drifts down here into where you build bots, and usually the steel and batteries lane you would usually build your drone frames with. So we've got some other batteries just going around the outside, but whatever. These are adjustments you can make ends up a whole lot easier to make if you've already got kind of a basic pattern that you can roll out and change slightly as necessary depending on what your mod needs. So yeah, speedrunner malls. It's really good. It makes a lot of things easy. I mean, it's not a pattern you're going to be able to use for C block or bobs or angels or anything like that, because you don't quite have these 3 ingredients giving you almost everything you need for the very early game. And yeah, it doesn't work out so much later on, but it is a good way of getting to the basic stuff fairly quickly, and unlocking bots, unlocking rail, getting all the good tools. Yeah, speedrunner mall.